You would think that after 7 years of being a Miraculous fan, I would have learned by now that the episode release dates are never accurate, but apparently not. Hey there, I'm Tori Soren. Episode 9 of Miraculous Season 6, Mr. Agreste, came out last week, and I was intending to make a video only like a day or two after it came out, but then it released 3 days early, and I am only now able to get around to it. I have already reviewed the rest of Season 6, and I probably won't make an in-depth video about every single new episode that comes out, but there is a lot to talk about with this episode, which is why I'm dedicating a whole video to it, and if there are any other majorly interesting episodes from Season 6, I will do the same for them. Of course, here is your official spoiler warning for Miraculous Season 6 so far, but with that, let's get into talking about Mr. Agreste. This episode, y'all, holy shit. There are so many interesting moments, and especially character writing here. Miraculous has a history of being kind of rough when it comes to the way it writes its characters, with their motivations and actions not really making sense, or just generally being kind of insufferable. But Season 6 has really stepped up its game, especially in Mr. Agreste. Starting with the very beginning of the episode, I love seeing Luka being supportive of Adrien as he's leaving for Brazil, and having this moment of recognition between them that acknowledges Adrien is Cat Noir. Unlike Marinette, who has multiple people that know her identity that she can rely on, Adrien has historically had no one. Although Luka is leaving Paris and thus isn't a permanent support system, Adrien knowing that there is someone out there he can trust is a huge step forward, and I really hope that this connection pays off and we get to see more of that dynamic play out. This flashback also reinforces just how much better this new art style looks. Even though there are some character redesign choices I'm not a huge fan of, seeing a bunch of the original character designs in this episode showcases what a glow up the Season 6 visuals are. Even Ladybug's original design, which is so simple and honestly kind of boring, looks really good with the improved lighting and rendering afforded by this new art style. In general, my only issues with this new art style don't come from the art style itself, and instead some of the design changes they made, and even then, most of the changes are barely glow downs or even improvements upon the original designs. If you want a more in-depth discussion about the character redesigns, I have already talked about each of the heroes and their civilian designs in my Season 6 video. That video is linked in the card and description of this video, and if you haven't watched that one yet, I would recommend checking it out if you want to hear my thoughts on the rest of the season. With that out of the way, it is time to get into the trio of mental illness that is Marinette, Adrien, and Luka. All three of them are going through separate mental health crises in this episode, with Luka bottling up his feelings for Marinette, Adrien struggling with seeing his father as a hero, and Marinette continuing to crash out about keeping Monarch's identity a secret. Because it's the least main plot relevant, I'm gonna start with the Luka still being in love with Marinette subplot. Luka is one of my favorite characters in this series and deserves so much better than this heartache. Part of why I love Luka so much is how well he understands emotions, not only with other people's inner melodies, but his own. He recognizes that staying in Paris and seeing the girl he's in love with dating one of his friends is a constant heartbreak that puts him at risk of being akumatized, which is why he knows he has to leave. Unfortunately, because Luka is such an empathetic person that constantly puts other people's needs before his own, he uses the Snake Miraculous to confess this knowledge to Marinette before reversing it and telling her he met a girl in Brazil. Before using his second chance, Luka tells Marinette,
"I'm about to lie to you. For the good of the three of us."
On the surface, this is about him not wanting his feelings for Marinette to intrude on her relationship with him or Adrien, but it also ties into his worry about getting akumatized over these feelings, jeopardizing Ladybug and Cat Noir's identities. Putting that extra distance between him and Marinette with a fake girlfriend is an extra cushion blocking his true feelings and risking those identities. I sincerely hope Luka is able to move on from this heartache, or discovers polyamory and forms a polycule with Marinette and Adrien, because he deserves the world. Adrien and Marinette's crises are related, as they both have to do with Gabriel's sacrifice. While the other episodes from this season so far have shown us bits and pieces of Adrien being uncertain about the title of hero that's been given to his father, Mr. Agreste specifically lays out all of Adrien's frustrations with his father, particularly when he vents all of those frustrations out to the akumatized villain in order to defeat him.
Why were you always traveling around the world instead of staying with Mom while she was sick? Why didn't you want me to meet my grandparents? Why didn't you want me to go to school like everyone else? Why didn't you want me to be in love with Marinette? Why did you stop being Popcorn and become this?
First of all, let's give a round of applause to Bryce Papenbrook for that performance. Tori, edit in better clapping, because I can't really clap with this microphone. I am so unbelievably ecstatic that Gabriel's neglect and abuse of Adrien was so deliberately spotlit here. As I mentioned in my other season 6 video, my #1 fear with the season 5 finale was that all of the harm Gabriel caused was going to be brushed under the rug just like he wanted. But even without knowing that his father was Monarch and being told repeatedly that he was in fact a hero, Adrien still has a lifetime of hurt and frustration that his father caused him that makes it difficult for him to accept the supposed truth of Gabriel Agreste's heroism. When his father was still alive, there were a few moments in which Adrien would attempt to defy him or express some of the hurt that we see him vent out in Mr. Agreste, but it isn't until he recognizes the incongruity between the image of Gabriel Agreste as the hero of Paris and the man he knew as his father that Adrien is able to truly understand and express all of the hurt and heartache that his father has caused him. This ties into the theme that we've seen brought up a couple of times in this season already, that truth is essential for personal growth. Adrien asking the stand-in for his father about all of the hurtful things he's done is a huge moment of personal growth for him, and is the most in line with the ultimate truth of his father being a villain. Once again, as I discussed for El Toro de Piedra and Revelator, the idea of truth being important for this growth has to do with 1, having a supervillain for a father doesn't reflect on your own personal value, and 2, Monarch's identity being kept from Adrien is a hindrance. If we especially consider the fact that Revelator comes after Mr. Agreste and after we start seeing this reflection and personal growth from Adrien, it emphasizes this point even further. Which brings us to the final crash out of the episode, Marinette continuing to keep Monarch's identity secret. We have already seen a good amount of this crisis, especially in El Toro de Piedra and Revelator, but Mr. Agreste has focused the most on its consequences and effect on Marinette specifically. The nightmare Marinette experiences following the intro very deliberately outlines her primary fear with telling Adrien the truth, Adrien feeling so devastated and betrayed that he breaks up with her and gets akumatized. We also know that Marinette is likely having nightmares like this very frequently, with Tiki asking her if she just had
another nightmare, Marinette?
Tiki recognizes just how much keeping the secret is eating away at Marinette and tells her that maybe she should tell Adrien the truth. When Marinette sees how much Adrien is struggling with accepting his father as a hero, she runs to Natalie and tells her they need to come clean, to which Natalie retorts with the fact that doing so would reveal Marinette's identity as Ladybug and would condemn Natalie as being Monarch's accomplice. It is so unfortunate that the only person other than the Kwamis that know Gabriel Agreste was Monarch is Natalie, and Felix, I guess, but he's not really the type of person for Marinette to confide in. While Natalie very clearly cares for Adrien like a mother, which is especially highlighted in Werepapas, she has other motives for keeping him in the dark, with her involvement as Mayura and Monarch's accomplice, as well as her involvement with whatever the Perfect World project is. Marinette is unfortunately in a really bad situation where the only person she could possibly talk about this decision with is actively steering her away from making the right choice, which leads Marinette to confide in someone else. Luka. The scene where Ladybug uses the snake Miraculous in the same way that Luka did to tell Gabriel Agreste's identity before reversing it and keeping it to herself because
you must never worry about me
is just so insane. Peak Miraculous. When this show is good, it is so good. I not only love this unique use of the snake Miraculous, but the parallel between Luka and Marinette both choosing to bear their burdens alone because they worry about how it's going to affect their loved ones really effectively illustrates why their relationship didn't work out. They are both far too inclined to deal with their problems on their own than to be honest with each other, and that lack of communication is ultimately what prevented their relationship from thriving. Luka's akumatization and truth back at the start of season 4 perfectly reflects that, and even with the huge barrier of Marinette's identity as Ladybug coming to light, they are still not compatible in that way. These two need so much therapy and learning to rely on the people that they can trust, because bottling up all these secrets is not healthy. But this brings us to Luka demanding that Marinette give him the Ladybug Miraculous. While most of this episode made a lot of sense based on the rest of the season and how certain plot points have been set up, this moment really threw me for a loop in the best possible way. Luka is generally a pretty calm character, so to see him actively demanding Ladybug's Miraculous and his confidence that he knew what needed to be done to set things right was really jarring and so fascinating. And unlike the rest of the characters' intentions being pretty clear throughout this episode, I am not at all sure what Luka was planning to do with the Ladybug Miraculous. But there are a few little details that give me at least some inclination as to what those intentions may be. It's time to get into some possible theories surrounding Luka's plan and the rest of the season. Let's break down what Luka says specifically, because although he is pretty vague, we can somewhat glean his intentions from his dialogue. The first explanation he provides Ladybug is,
I know things that you don't, and I'm probably the only one who can fix this.
Unless there is some other knowledge that Luka has that we as the audience haven't been told yet, the things that Luka knows are that Adrien is Cat Noir, and therefore Cat Noir's father was Monarch. He is the only character other than the Kwamis that knows Ladybug, Cat Noir, and Monarch's identities in this moment. Whatever Luka is intending to say or do, Ladybug would be incapable of doing, as she doesn't know that Adrien is Cat Noir. So my initial thought was that Luka would of course tell Adrien the truth himself, knowing that he's Cat Noir, and thus would be a bit more understanding of the complexities of the situation. However, that doesn't really feel like a satisfactory explanation, as it doesn't particularly relate to Luka needing the Ladybug Miraculous. Maybe he would use it to specifically call Cat Noir to have this conversation, but that seems like a really small thing that wouldn't constitute the absolute desperation for the Ladybug Miraculous that he expresses in this moment. Which brings me to the second half of that sentence, where Luka specifically says that he's going to fix this. One of the Ladybug Miraculous's powers is the Miraculous Ladybug that has the magical ladybugs fix everything, so I wonder if Luka would somehow harness that power. But once again, that's kind of a dead end, since that power is only really related to akumatized villains, and I have no idea what those magical ladybugs would be repairing. Luka also says, "This time I'm the one that needs to protect you."
You're the strongest person I've ever met, but this time I'm the one who needs to protect you.
Which could possibly be another hint toward his specific intentions and plans with the Miraculous, but it may also just be referencing him protecting Marinette from the burden of keeping the secret from Adrien. The one thing I am extremely confident about is that Luka's plan is directly related to Adrien being Cat Noir, as that is the one piece of knowledge that Marinette does not have. I only have one kind of concrete theory on what Luka intended to do, and that is using the Ladybug and Black Cat Miraculous to make some wish. I'm not entirely sure what that wish could possibly be that would fix everything, but I had the thought that he would maybe wish to at least temporarily bring back Gabriel Agreste, so that Adrien could talk to him and see that he was actually Monarch. Something that's been referenced a lot throughout the season is that no matter what Adrien says or does, it won't bring his father back. But Chrysalis also specifically tells Theo in this episode that he could use Ladybug and Cat Noir's Miraculous to bring Gabriel Agreste back.
Seize Cat Noir's Miraculous.
You bring it back to me, and I'll explain how you can use it to make a wish
To bring Gabriel Agreste back, for example.
We also know that Gabriel wrote a letter to Adrien in El Toro de Piedra that tells him to use the Miraculous to bring him back. And all of that sort of planted the seed in my head that it could be tied back to the Luka situation. I don't really like this theory because it not only doesn't feel like something Luka would do, but I don't really have concrete evidence for it, and Adrien probably wouldn't let Luka sacrifice himself if it came to that. The big reason making wishes with the Miraculous is bad is because there has to be a trade-off and the world resets when that wish is made. However, per the season 5 finale, if the wish isn't used for personal gain, it doesn't cause the world-ending scenario that we see in Ephemeral or the London special, which means maybe Luka would choose to sacrifice himself for Adrien's benefit, which would be very in character, especially with his self-sacrificial tendencies being emphasized with the lie he told Marinette in this episode. I think it's possible that instead his wish could be something like Spider-Man No Way Home, where he retroactively makes everyone understand that Monarch was Gabriel Agreste, and the trade-off is that nobody remembers who Luka is, and so the wish he makes brings the truth to light and sacrifices everyone's knowledge of his own existence. Again, there isn't really anything to support this theory specifically, I'm just spitballing based on what we do know. Realistically, it probably is as simple as him calling Cat Noir using the Ladybug Miraculous and then telling him the truth, knowing that he will be more understanding as Cat Noir. I'm not really sure. I would love to hear what your thoughts are with Luka's intentions here. Either way, I think this is going to be a really important plot point, especially with the fact that the Miraculous Ladybug social media team posted this image that emphasizes this question and asks for people's theories on what Luka was intending to do. When it comes to my theories for the season as a whole, I still have a lot of confidence that Marinette is going to keep the secret, and the fallout of the truth coming out is probably going to result in her akumatization. Chrysalis also says a line about Ladybug being
vulnerable without a partner,
which ties into the catalyst for her akumatization being Cat Noir feeling betrayed and abandoning her. Perhaps Luka realized this possibility and wanted to protect Ladybug by taking away this burden of her potentially being painted as a villain. In any case, I think the scene with Luka and Mr. Agreste at minimum illustrates that Luka is going to be majorly involved with this plot point surrounding Adrien and Monarch's identity. There is one last thing I want to talk about related to this, that being, why hasn't Plagg told Adrien the truth about his father being Monarch? While Adrien Adrien is struggling with the idea of Gabriel being a hero, he asks Plagg to tell him about what happened, to which Plagg responds,
I was inside the Black Cat ring in a magical energy state. Needless to say, things were a bit blurry.
We know that Plagg has a history of being a bit of a screw-up, using his cataclysm to cause disasters and facing severe repercussions for it.
Does the disappearance of Atlantis ring a bell with you?
I'd had too much cheese.
The Leaning Tower of Pisa?
I didn't see it.
Dinosaurs!
Oh, yeah, okay, no, I did go too far there.
Plagg doesn't want to face those same repercussions if telling Adrien the truth results in catastrophe. Outside of that, as a Kwami, Plagg meddling in human relationships isn't really his place, and he might not even physically be able to tell Adrien that Monarch was his dad. It's very possible that per the not being able to say their owner's name rule, the Kwamis would be unable to tell anyone that Gabriel Agreste was Monarch. But outside of this, as beings that represent fundamental aspects of the universe, they're not meant to directly involve themselves like this. Obviously, they can be friends and give advice like Tiki does by suggesting Marinette tell Adrien the truth, but actively involving themselves in human relationships and issues isn't something they really do. I know I initially was kind of annoyed at Plagg for not telling Adrien the truth, but then I realized it's not really something he can do, so I don't blame him for not coming clean to Adrien. Outside of the really great character writing and story stuff from this episode, Mr. Agreste is really enjoyable in other ways. The moment that had me the most gobsmacked, aside from the Luka and Ladybug scene, is when Cat Noir apologizes to the statue for cataclysming it.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cataclysm you!
The fact that Cat Noir accidentally cataclysming his dad's arm is what would have ultimately led to his death if he hadn't made the wish. Them throwing that into this episode was kind of insane. Cat Noir losing his ring was also a really cool moment. I always love when the heroes get really close to being defeated. Mr. Agreste himself is one of the most powerful akumatized villains in the series. He's not only huge and can throw parts of his clay body to cause major damage, but is effectively indestructible with his ability to regrow limbs and hide objects in his body, including Cat Noir's Miraculous and the akumatized object. There are a few other random little things of note that I want to touch on from this episode. Ladybug's unified snake Miraculous design is really clever, using purple to communicate that venomy look and snake imagery without using the teal that might not go as well with the rest of her design. It's definitely not my favorite unified design, but I still really like it, and I always enjoy seeing different unifications. The choice to have Chrysalis sitting still in the statue poses as Theo mimes carving them was actually a really fun and clever choice. Ladybug's first two lucky charms are a fencing saber and perfume bottle, which are both items associated with Adrien, particularly in the era of his father controlling his life. These items foreshadowed that the solution to defeating Mr. Agreste was for Adrien to confront his father's mistreatment of him. And finally, we have the end scene that teases Irupe with the hummingbird Miraculous, which is probably only related to the Rio special and not the main show, but it's still neat to see that alluded to here. That really does it for my thoughts on Mr. Agreste. It is easily my favorite of the season 6 episodes so far, with all of the character focus, especially on their motivations and secrets. It's exactly the kind of drama that I love to see in this show. I continue to adore season 6 and look forward to what else it has in store. I will definitely be making more videos on it when there is more to discuss. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all next time. Y'all, I really gotta get more Miraculous merch, because what do you mean the only merch I own is 2 cereal boxes, a light, and a blanket? I gotta step up my game.